Hello, y'all. Welcome to Conscious Conversion. Today, I have Jon Vroman. He helps others be moment makers. He is married to his free-spirited wife, Tatiana, father of two energetic boys, Tiger and Ocean. I think those might be my two favorite names ever, other than my own child's name, Indiana, but I love those. And they live in Austin, Texas. Jon is the founder of the Front Row Foundation, a charity established in 2005 that creates unforgettable moments for individuals who are braving life-threatening illnesses. They provide a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to live life in the front row by granting front row moments to life events of their recipients' dreams. He's also the founder of FrontRowDads.com, an international community of family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. He's host of the top-rated Front Row Dad podcast, where Jon shares interviews that extract and understand the rituals, routines, and habits that help every man be better fathers and husbands. As the author of #1 best-selling book, The Front Row Factor, Jon helps readers learn about living life from those fighting for it. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today. You're doing incredible things in the world.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of people working hard to serve where we can, you know. We have a good team.
How'd you get into this world? We'll start with the charitable, the Front Row Foundation. How did you get into that? I'm assuming there's some beautiful or tragic story that brought you to that place.
There is a story, of course, and it starts with what I think is relevant, and I'll keep it short because it's the story can be long, but the important part of it is that I was at this stage of life where I had worked really hard to get to this position in this company that I was with. I was an executive, and I had made enough money to where I could buy a house and I could buy the car, and I had eaten at some fancy restaurants until one day I kind of shrugged my shoulders, and with that thought of there has to be more. Right? There has to be more than just how much can I get? What type of car can I drive? What kind of house can I live in? And I think that that's a natural part of our evolution to want to then give. I think for many, many people to want to share, to want to help others when you've achieved some level of success in your life. And so I just wanted to do something nice. And so that began the exploration of, well, what could you do that would be nice? And what do you care about? What are your greatest fears? What are your greatest loves? How do you take your genius zone and put it to work in the world? And what problem do you want to solve? And all those conversations led to the beginning of Front Row Foundation. And the kind of the bridge between it all was actually kind of a fun story where I was at a Jason Mraz concert, and I was in the back row, like the very back row. And I remember looking down to the front. This was June of 2005 in Philadelphia. And I looked to the front row and I saw these girls having the time of their life. They're singing and they're dancing. And I just then looked around the room and I was like, it's amazing to me that the same thing is happening. The same music is being played. We're all in the same venue. And yet people could be having dramatically different experiences. Some people are connected and completely in the moment. And other people look like they wanted to be anywhere other than there, checked out, like they were dragged along to this event. And I just thought that was a beautiful metaphor for life, that you could either be in the back row kind of watching life happen, or you can step up and you can get close to the people, places, thoughts, and things that make you come alive. And so the front row message, the front row philosophy is a life philosophy of getting close to the things that light you up. Like you're in Costa Rica, right? And it'd be like choosing your environment that lights you up. We moved from Philadelphia to Austin because we wanted to be in proximity to and be in an environment that lights us up. When we're hanging out with people we love, we're having a front row moment in life. And so the Front Row Foundation wanted to help people that were fighting for their life, people with life-threatening illnesses, kids and adults, and have this incredible day going to their dream event. And we would create this incredible experience. But most importantly, it would become a metaphor for how they live their entire life. So no matter how many days we have, how can we make the most of them? How can we be moment makers? And so we wanted to create that identity and that brand. And so it all started kind of sitting around a kitchen table with some friends, and we raised a couple $1,000. And then next thing you know, we're raising a couple $1 million, and the charity is just doing what it does. And so that's kind of the story of its birth.
That's amazing. And as we're talking about, raising millions of dollars, it brings me to sort of one of the themes of this podcast and this show is how we can leverage this energetic currency of money to do transformative and beneficial work in the world.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you are the epitome of that. And so thank you.
Yeah, we're learning and growing all the time. It's difficult to ask for help. It's difficult to, it's difficult to oftentimes tell our stories in ways that move and compel people to want to get involved. But hence the dance begins, and we've been on that dance for a long time.
So tell me, how does that segue into the dad work?
So the dad work, all right, so here's another bridge to connect a few dots. So started the charity around my corporate work until the moment when I decided that I really didn't want to do the corporate job anymore. I just really wanted to do the charity work. But then I thought, what job could I have that would support the charity, that would work in harmony, that would be in alignment with that work, where if I did one thing, it would automatically serve the other. And I thought, oh, what if I were to go out and tell the story of all these people that I was meeting through the charity? And that hence began the, what can you learn about living life from people fighting for it? So I said, there's all these lessons about how to make the most of our time and how to view relationships and what matters most in life. And I was learning so much from these incredible people that we were serving. I felt like many times I was the beneficiary. I was the one learning and growing and benefiting the most because I was meeting such amazing people. So we wrote the book, The Front Row Factor, and I just started speaking about this. So I left my corporate job and became a keynote speaker. And I would travel all over talking to people about living life in the front row and what that meant. Because a lot of companies and organizations want their people to be engaged. They want them to show up for others. A lot of the message that we get preached is to play the game, right? Get in the field, right? Don't be on the sidelines. I think we miss a part of that message though, because I love that game. First of all, I love playing the game, right? I love being on the field. But I also think it's great for us to have a balance in our lives where we can help others to get on the field, right? To be a cheer on someone else. It doesn't mean you're a loser as a parent if you're like front row to your kid's soccer match, right? Like, somebody looks at you and goes, you're a loser because you're not in the game. It's like, no, I'm in the game because I'm cheering somebody else on. I'm lifting them up. I'm putting them in the spotlight. And that's a part of the game too, is lifting others, making them the rock star for the moment. Right? And that's what you do with your podcast. You lift other people up, you put them in the spotlight, and that's a front row life. And so I started speaking about that, and I became a full-time keynote speaker for almost a decade. And that's how I took care of my family financially. And I was still running the charity as the executive director, kind of, in partnership with that. It was a beautiful synergy until I realized that being a dad of two boys and being on the road 150 days a year, giving 50 keynotes, all over, was not really what I wanted to do anymore. And I loved the journey. I loved where we were, but at some point I realized I had talked a lot about being a great dad, but I wasn't being a great dad. I was a guy who was out there saying, we're just one more month, one more year, got to get through this season, got to get through this book launch, got to get through this podcast launch, got to get through this next part of the business. And all of a sudden I realized I'm a businessman who happens to have a family on the side. And I wanted to be a family man who happen to have a business. And it's just like how we design everything, right, in our lives, where you can look at the calendar and you can go, all right, where are my business meetings? Where am I going to go give my speeches? When am I going to do this? And then, oh, by the way, when am I going to squeeze my family in? Or you do what my friend Jay Papasan says, who wrote The One Thing. And he says, you put the family vacation on the calendar, you put your non-negotiables for your family life first, and then you build your life around that. You build your business around that. So not like, hey, let me just scale my business for the sake of scaling it. Hey, I'm supposed to grow this. Otherwise I'm a loser businessman, if I'm not big and I'm not feeding my ego with all that significance. But instead we say, what do I want for my family? And then what type of business do I need to serve that? Well, when I was really honest with myself, Sarah, about this whole thing, I knew I needed to make a change. And so I started Front Row Dads, not because I had answers and I wanted to tell guys what to do. I started Front Row Dads because I was desperately looking for answers and I wasn't able to find them as easily as I wanted to. I was like, we got all these masterminds for men to build their businesses, but where's the mastermind for men to focus on their family? We always say family first, family's most important, but our actions and our calendars don't align with that. For many, I'm not speaking for all. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm speaking for all the guys that showed up to my first retreat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it sounds like, because it sounds like you had sort of this a prayer of sorts of like, how can I make my business be of service to my family and to other families and to the world. Yeah. And I think that really my experience and the experience, like I said, like you just said, like of the people I've observed, is when you have that sort of mission driven, how can I best be of service to humanity, to family, to the planet? magical shit happens.
Yeah.
Good things come to those businesses and those people.
I desperately want to save the world. I think that we are, by the way, not moving in the right direction at the present moment. And I think if we don't elevate, if we don't become more conscious and aware and connected with each other, this is not going to end well. The story is not going to end well for planet Earth. And I thought to myself, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to go lobby? Do I want to start another charity? Do I want to try to convince some business owner they need to have different practices? Or do I want to say, look, Mother Teresa's quote is best, right? If you want to save the world, go home and love your family. I thought, where's the next 30, 40, 50 years going to really be impacted? It's like dads loving their kids, dads educating their kids, dad helping their kids get connected to the planet, dads helping their kids understand that we're crushing our oceans with plastic, and that the degradation of the soil around the world, that the food supply is in jeopardy. Like I wanted dads to be able to go home and teach their kids. And my buddy Dan Martell says everybody's homeschooling their kids, whether they realize it or not. And I think that the world's been thrust into a homeschooling mentality, but the truth is we're always leading our kids. We're just either examples or warnings, or, it's how we're living our lives. And if we keep going with I'm going to go show my kids how to crush it, and that's the only thing we're teaching our kids how to do is go crush it at work, I don't know that that's going to be enough to save the planet.
Yeah. Wow. So how have you taken this? You can either talk about the foundation or the business or both. How have you taken this mission-driven sort of business that
they're both
got?
Businesses? One's nonprofit, one's for-profit, but they're both businesses.
How have you taken that and gotten that in front of people? How have you reached people organically?
In some really creative ways, some really creative ways. Like the charity we had, oh God, I could talk for hours about this because it's such a fun story. But one of the things, Sarah, that we realize is when you take an inventory of where is really your genius zone and where is the interest of your community. I'll give you an example. So when the charity started, we did an ultra marathon to raise money to get started. And then we did a comedy show, and we had a couple hundred people show up to a fire hall in New Jersey to, $30 a ticket. And we raised some money that night. And that led to a big gala celebration with 350 people in suits and ties. And we raised, $80,000. And then, one of my best friends is a guy named Hal Elrod, who wrote a book called The Miracle Morning. And Hal said, I'm going to donate a percentage of my book sales to Front Row Foundation. So he just started funneling tens of thousands of dollars into the charity that way, which was a really cool synergy. Like he wanted to teach people how to wake up and start their day. And we wanted to teach people how to live their day as they were in it. And we had this beautiful partnership. Well, Hal had this big event called Best Year Ever Blueprint. We had this big gala, and we said, what if we just partner up? What if we brought everybody together? And we said, what if we mix kind of this purpose and profit business of like, how do I take care of me? How do I take care of others? Myself, my friends, the world, etc. And what if we brought all that together? And so we did. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, we have these big events with 400 or 500 people. Our friends were invited in to speak on the stage. And at the end of them speaking on the stage, we'd raffle off time with them and auction off, spots into their mastermind programs. And we'd raise a couple $100,000 by doing that. And it was incredibly creative and fun and synergistic. And we were all building together. We were playing together. We were raising money together. We were making an impact together. And so that's one of the ways that we did it. We just looked within and looked around and thought, where are all of our resources and how can they work together? So that's one example. And then I think with the Front Row Dads, we haven't done a lot of advertising. In fact, it's something that I should probably hire you, right? Like we should do more of that. But it's been the type of thing where we have 180 paying members in the Brotherhood right now that are committed to this crew, right? They're getting together for online summits and in-person retreats and monthly calls. And we have small groups called bands. And we've grown to 180 guys, mostly because they bring their friends in. They get in the group, they love it, and then they bring their friends in. Like referrals has been the way that we've expanded our message, but the podcast too. And the podcast has doubled in its downloads in the last 60 days, and people are just sharing it, and it's growing. And that's one of the ways that we're expanding our reach, on the kind of the beginning part of somebody's journey with us. And then we have guys that bring in their friends.
Wow. It sounds to me like you are so aligned, like everything just kind of flows beautifully for you. and for your projects?
Yeah, I remember learning about this concept from a bunch of mentors in my life. Remember my buddy John Berghoff talking about alignment and synergy and harmony. How can one thing always serve the other thing? And that if everything's working together, that's the goal, right? And then I remember Tim Ferriss talking about that with his portfolio, his investments, about how the companies that he's investing in, he wants them to be in harmony with each other. If one of those companies does well, can it help another one of those companies in his portfolio? And I believe that is where we have a lot of power, is when the ecosystem, right? When the system is working, that it's amplifying, that the growth is exponential as a result of that. That is where we truly find our scale, but maybe not in the way that we normally talk about it, but we find our biggest impact in that way.
Exponential scale. It's like,
that's exactly what it is.
It's like a global scale as opposed to a linear type scale.
Yep.
And you've done all of this without paid advertising. So just imagine what could happen.
Yes, I know. It's our next call, Sarah.
No, I mean, but seriously, like I tell people that I can't light the match. What I can do is pour fuel onto the existing flames. Yeah. And when those flames are already going, and this is a good fire, this is a fire of love. When that fire is already going, and we can just pour fuel on it, it's magical. Yeah. So that's really exciting. How do you keep, I mean, it sounds like it's all just sort of in the flow and you've got this intuitive sense and you're really like harmonized. But is there anything else you want to say about how do you stay in alignment with your customers and your clients, like, and make sure that what you're offering is what they need, what they want, what they're willing to buy?
Well, first, let's back up for a second. I love that it feels that way to you, that we're like in alignment and in flow, but it doesn't feel that way to me many days.
Okay, and let's hear about that then.
I think it's really important for people to know that too, that we've struggled more than we've succeeded. And I've wrestled with how to make sense of this, right? How to communicate a message, how to say it in a few words, how to say it so that people get it. And I'll give you an example. What you said earlier about we are family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. That we didn't have that in the beginning until we did. And when we said it, I remember one of my buddies, the first time he heard that, he's like, holy shit, man, that's fucking it. That says it all. And now we've heard people repeatedly come back and say, you had me at family man with business, not businessman with family. That says the whole thing. That sums up beautifully the whole thing in that one sentence. Or another example of that would be, we learn a lot about living life from people fighting for it. We didn't have that for years. We never had that statement. But boy, when we say that to people, they get it. They're like, I totally get that. That makes a ton of sense. And so I think that we've struggled a lot to figure out how to say what we want to say. It's like why we love great quotes. We love great quotes because we're like, yes, that's what I've been trying to say. And I can't say it so poetically. I can't say it in those few words, but you've managed to capture my heart in 10 words. It's why kids get so frustrated, because they don't have the vocabulary yet to express their emotional state. So they get frustrated. Or when I and my wife and I are fighting, which we do, we fight big, right? And it's like, why we fight is because I'm trying to say something and she's not getting it. And we both get frustrated and we both are like, you're not understanding what I'm saying. And they're like, but you're not understanding what I'm saying. So I have to say that, because while we have definitely found alignment and we have definitely found some flow, we have spent a lot of time out of alignment and out of flow. And still, I know there's a lot of room to grow. So that brings me to the next part, which is, how do we know how to serve people? And like this, so this is where we struggle, because do we ask them what they want and then build what they tell us they want? Or do we build what we think they want and then show them what it is? Because this goes back to the often quoted Henry Ford, if I would have asked people what they want, they'd told me a faster horse. Right?
Right. Yep.
And so in some ways, our team wrestles behind the scenes going, is this where we put out a poll? Is this where we survey? Is this where we ask? Or do we know what they need before they even know what they need? And the answer is both. The answer is yes and. And so we're doing a little bit of that, where we're connecting, we're learning. I mean, I think there's definitely where, if you're a CEO of an organization or a leader of a tribe, you need to get in there and talk with people. You need to have one-to-one conversations and say, what's going on? You need to listen and put your ear to the ground and understand what's happening, right? And then at the same time, you need to be a thought leader enough yourself where you're giving yourself time to think. You're giving yourself enough time to meditate or have an original thought so that you can bring it to the group and the entire group is elevated by that conscious thought. Both are important.
I mean, that's sort of, you got to where I was thinking whenever you were speaking a couple of minutes ago, which is sort of like you need that time to meditate and tap into whatever it is that the collective is needing right now.
Correct.
Whether that be the collective of men, dads in the world, or whatever. What is it that they're needing that they don't even know that they need, but on some deep level, the planet knows, the collective knows.
That's
and
right.
If you can just quiet your damn mind for a hot second to feel that, then you can bring it to them and they'll be like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed and didn't know it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. You kick ass.
Hey, thank you.
So as you've gotten bigger, I'm sure you've had to delegate things. Like you have to delegate, a lot of the administrative pieces, maybe like the production of your podcast, all these things that I'm thinking like of what I have to delegate.
For sure.
So as you grow, you have to delegate. How do you stay authentic as you're delegating things like social media marketing or like, your emails or whatever it is that you're putting out there?
Yeah, A players. It's all about A players. It's all about the right people. I got to tell you, Sarah, somebody asked me recently about the most impactful relationship that's new to me in the last year of my life. And the answer is by far Rachel Dietrich, who is my community manager for Front Row Dads. And when I tell you this woman kicks ass, like I'm telling you, she is remarkable. She is incredible. And when I work with her, I'm reminded of what a B player and a C player is like, because she's an A player. She is an A+ player, right? And she's the type of person where I come up with an idea, I have a thought, and whatever she brings back is better than I could have imagined. Like I'm constantly replying to stuff, whatever it is, and I'm like, that's incredible, right? Like brilliant. Where I would work with other people and they would send me something back, and I'm like, I'm so frustrated. I'm going to end up doing double the work. But that's all about the right person, right, on your team, and having the courage to know when it's not the right person. And for me, a lot of that, Sarah, and I think you'll really appreciate this because this is where we bring the spiritual element in, is trusting my body, trusting this inner sense of like, how does that feel when I work with that person? What does my body do? What is my heart, my head, my mind, my soul? What is all that screaming at me that I can practically move through any of that? And I have in the past where I just ignored it and didn't listen to it because I went to the knowledge, what does the book say, but versus trust my gut, trust my heart, listen to my body, what's it telling me? And then also being revealing, being fully transparent. The truth is, I would have told you 10 years ago, I was really transparent and open and honest and authentic with people, but I had room to grow. Because the truth is that at 45 years old now, I'm much more honest with people. I'm much more revealing. I'm much more direct. I'm much more, I say what's in my heart, not in a mean way. And I still have a filter. I think it's good to have a filter, but man, I got to tell you, it's A players. That's the answer. It's A players. My podcast producer, Charlie Conley of Pod Post Media, is amazing. And I don't get any referral if you call him. There's no bonus. He doesn't give me any free months. There's none of that. And I don't even want it. I want people to go to Charlie because he's badass, right? And Rachel is badass. And we just hired an executive director for our Front Row Foundation named Mike Thompson. This guy is badass, right? 4-time cancer survivor, Ironman triathlete. Like this guy gets shit done, and he's awesome, and he's fun, and he's great to talk to.
You're a badass. I love how you practice what you preach. Like you're so meta. It's like you're like talking about putting people in the front row and getting them in the game and cheering them on. And you do it like as you talk about it. You're name dropping all these people that are working with you and lifting them up. And I think it's awesome. Like you are high vibe as fuck.
Thank you. Ate mushrooms this morning. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, there you go. Microdosing always does the trick. What kind of rituals and routines do you do on on the daily to really show up for your people, or maybe you don't do them? What's your philosophy there?
I do. And my philosophy is to have those rituals and routines ever evolving, because I'm also a man of high variety need. And so I'm not a very consistent, like, this is my routine, I've done it for 5 years. That is not me. And by the way, I have friends that are exactly that way. They are so routine and they thrive in that. And I don't try to convince them otherwise, but I've recognized that my need is in the variety sense. So I'm constantly playing and tweaking and tuning my calendar. My favorite place to eat is the one I haven't eaten at yet, right? Right? That's it. My favorite thought is the one I've yet to have. So I'm a variety guy. And what I think really works is this. For me as a dad, there's two things. Number one is what I do before my kids wake up and what I need in paying attention to my body. So I used to say, like, as an example, I'd wake up at 4 a.m. no matter what and do these things. I mean, listen, one of my best friends is Mr. fucking Miracle Morning. So, right, like I'm exposed to the Miracle Morning, 6 savers, that whole concept, right? Silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling are the 6 things. The truth is that sometimes I just need to fucking sleep. The truth is, like, I literally go to bed and I'm like, the best thing I can do for my life today is to get a full 8 hours of sleep. That's what I need more than waking up and meditating and reading and anything else. I need to sleep.
I mean, that's the thing about getting up at 4, or in my case, I try to get up at 5, but that means you got to go to bed at 8. In order to get your 8 hours. And then you're just going to bed and your kids go to bed and you're like, damn it.
And by the way, my sex life sucks when I go to bed at 8 o'clock. My sex life sucks. So there's all these things that to balance, right? Because my wife is a night owl and I'm an early morning person, and yet we want to connect and we want to have time and we want to have sex and all this stuff. And so there's a lot to balance. We're constantly figuring out how to juggle all these priorities. And most of the time we're missing. Most of the time I'm falling short somewhere, but I'm trying to forgive myself quickly, make adjustments, pick up the ball and move on. But look, I do all sorts of things to prep my brain. Exercise is huge. I have a philosophy, which is just sweat daily. Just sweat daily. Every day I break a sweat. If I'm going to the sauna and doing a cold plunge, if I'm going for a run, if I'm paddleboarding.
Does it count that I live in the tropics and so I break a sweat just by waking up?
Why I live in Austin. It's been 100 degrees for 60 fucking days, you know? And the truth is that all that needs to happen, right? So I go to the pool every day. I go to the sauna every day at lunch. Every day midday I go to the pool. I go to the sauna and I lay in the sun for 15 minutes. I recognize that, you know, these are all things I need to do to stay focused. But I mean, we could talk for hours about the other things that you do, but you gotta, you know, I think that you always need to have an experimentation. You got to know what works and keep coming back to that. Some of mine are like daily sweat is consistent. I could say that, but how I sweat varies constantly. I want to play volleyball. I want to go for a bike ride. I want to go for a hike. I don't want to do the same shit all the time.
Awesome. I love it. So tell me about your next level. I mean, you've got huge vision.
Oh, I can tell you, I just had a breakthrough. I'll tell you about a breakthrough I just had. Great. And it was so wild because my breakthrough, the next level is, so we want Front Row Dads to be tens of thousands of members. And the truth is, I don't want that for me. I want that because I believe so much in what we're doing that I want men to have access to this, the right men to have access to it. And the breakthrough for me was, okay, so are we out of time?
No, you do you. Keep talking.
Okay, all right. So I want to share with you a concept because this has to do with how the breakthrough came to be, right? And like what's next level. So I shout out to my good buddy, Dr. Kelly Flanagan, who wrote a book called Lovable. And Dr. Kelly Flanagan started out as a guest at my retreat as a like featured speaker, and then joined our group. And he's an amazing guy. And one of his most popular metaphors that he uses to articulate the ego is called the ego castle. Now check this out. You're going to love this, Sarah. So the ego castle is like this. In elementary school, you realize that people can hurt you, and they might be picking on you because you wear shitty clothes or something like that, right? You start to understand like what a brand is. And it's like my kids both understand kind of later in elementary school what a brand is. And so what we do is we start to build an ego castle wall. And the wall that we build is meant to project something to protect us. Brand name clothing is a great example of that. I wear this clothing. You see that on me, think I'm something, and then I get to protect my insecurities or who I feel like I'm not because I get to build this wall, this article of clothing, if you will. But then what happens is in junior high, we realize that the best defense is oftentimes a good offense. And so what we do is we put cannons on our wall. And in junior high, particularly where people could be mean as fuck, kids, could be mean to each other. They understand that they can cut each other down with their words, right? They're like ninjas with their words. They're archers with their arrows. They pierce people where it hurts the most, right? They can do it with their parents. They can do it with other kids. And that's the cannon that gets put on your ego castle. The third part of the stage of building your ego castle, which is all normal. Everybody does it. Everybody has walls. Everybody has cannons, and everybody has the third part, which is a throne. So in high school, you start to become good at something. You're great academically. You're the jock. You're whatever, right? You're so good at being alternative and goth or whatever it is, but somehow, some way you find your jam. And what you do is you sit on that throne of righteousness, which is part of your ego. All part, you get to be right and everybody else gets to be wrong as a way to protect yourself, because an ego is your false self. It's a created self to protect yourself in the world. Until we at some point in our lives, and it happens for people at all different ages, we realize that our castle has a drawbridge. And the drawbridge is where we can lower it down and walk out and finally be ourselves again. This is actually the type of music I like, and I get to stop pretending like I like everybody else's music. These are actually the clothes I want to wear, or whatever. These are my sexual desires, and I've hid them forever or whatever, but we can finally start to be ourselves, transparent and vulnerable. So our ego castle is always there. Everybody has one. And for me, part of my evolution has been realizing that I had a castle, and that the other part of it is not to destroy the castle, but learn how to work with it. Because an ego can be powerful. It can protect you. I mean, look, if you're completely vulnerable, if you just say anything that you want, if you don't wear any clothes and walk out into the world, that chemistry may not work for the rest of society. So our ego castle is actually serving us as long as we are conscious to it, and it's not running our lives in the background where we are, a victim of our castle, if you will, right? And so for me, a lot of this has been realizing that where my ego castle plays a role in my development as the leader of Front Row Dads, and that to understand how vulnerable I can be, how open I can be, how much I want to build Front Row Dads so that I feel significant for validation and everybody saying, you're awesome, John, or whatever, and how much I literally want to serve the company. That Front Row Dads is a thing that I don't own. It's like a parent realizing you don't own your children. You don't own them. They are a person. You might be shepherding them. You might be gifted the responsibility of giving them a place to grow up in the world, but they are not yours. You do not own them. Right? They are not your property. And so the business for me is the same way, where it's this thing that now has a life, and it's a thing that my job is to serve that thing. I wake up every day and feel like a servant to the charity in the most powerful way, because I'm like, I'm not trying to make myself wealthy. I'm happy with wealth. I don't mind having wealth. I make great money right now. I'm well taken care of. I have more money than I need right now. But the truth is that I want to make Front Row Dads and Front Row Foundation wealthy, because then that organization, that thing can serve many people. That fires me up. So our evolution is to find ways to remove me from any area of the business where I'm not operating in my zone of genius, and empower A players and recruit a team of people who all want to build the same thing.
I mean, you could be a business coach in your next life, just so you know, because that's it right there. It's amazing.
That's cool. I'm learning a lot. I've got good business coaches in my life.
How can people find you so that they can, particularly the dads listening out there?
Yeah, frontrowdads.com is the best place to go get everything. Frontrowfoundation.org is the best place to get everything for the charity. And I would say if you can't find me that way, just type in Jon Front Row and I should pop up. Awesome.
Thank you so much. This was one of the most fun conversations ever. I feel like we could have talked all day long.
We can, and we should.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.